Getting pain-free first, then reaching new levels of athleticism is, in my opinion, exactly what ATG helps us do. I believe that there are two major keys for most of us to achieve exactly that. The first one is to be able to absorb everything you produce, meaning you're not speeding up what you cannot slow down. And there are 5 great ways to achieve that. I've made a video on that topic already, so make sure to check it out afterwards. Then the second key is to be balanced from side to side. That's what I'm going to break down in this video. So if you're a footballer, a basketballer, or just an athlete that jumps and kicks a lot, make sure to stick around, because then I believe that the knowledge I'm about to share is really a must know for you. But now, before you ask yourself, what balance from side to side is this dude even talking about, and how is this going to make me a better athlete? I'm talking about the jumping balance, landing balance, and kicking balance. But let's have a look at jumping balance first. Jump balance simply means that you get strong at jumping off both sides, meaning you want to get as good jumping off your left foot as you are jumping off your right foot. And when you're jumping with both legs, you want to be equally strong at jumping with a left-right plant as well as a right-left plant. This is balance, but let's be honest. Most of us, we all have a preferred foot to jump off. And we don't think about it. We don't overthink it because it just feels natural, and it is natural. But over time, we'll have performed so many more jumps off that preferred foot than the other. And if I think back, I'm pretty sure that it wasn't no coincidence that my right knee was that weak. I mean, you as well, you wouldn't go into the gym working out just one side, completely ignoring the other, right? But that's what often happens on the field, just naturally, as we're gonna use our stronger leg to jump off if we want to win that duel, right? It's just natural. And then you get even told, yeah, work on your strength. Work on your strength, get stronger there. But regarding your athleticism, you have to keep in mind, you're only as strong as your weakest link. Let's just have a look at the evidence. This study observed 2 groups trying to get better at their dominant leg performance in long jump. Now, one group just worked on their dominant leg. The other group took both legs, worked on both legs, trying to get better at the dominant side. And guess what? Which group got better results? It was actually the group that worked on both legs. So this again, for me, proves the point that you're only as strong as your weakest link. What do you think about it? Let me know down in the comment section. I would be happy to discuss it with you. But now let's look at how ATG lets us work both legs equally well, making sure we get strong on either side, and we can feel in the exercise, okay, this side is stronger, this is weaker, in a simple way and in a way where everyone can get started, whether you're still in pain or you're looking to really level up your athleticism. The first muscle we want to rebalance is the tibialis anterior. It's very probable that you've never even heard of that muscle, but every time you actually run up to a jump and plant your foot, moving your knee over your toe, this muscle contracts and plays a primary role to protect your knee when doing that, because you can think of it as a shock absorber when planting and landing. And if you are primarily jumping and landing on one leg, you'll very likely find imbalances there. But it is crucial that both sides are strongly developed so that you're protected from shin splints and unnecessary knee pain and injuries. Then the polyquin step up. This exercise is all about preparing your knees to handle those jumping and landing forces equally well on both sides. And by improving your knee strength and stability with this exercise, you're significantly strengthening the exact position your knee gets in before jumping off and also when you land again. Then over time, you want to get up to at least 6 inches of elevation. But if there is pain, everyone can get started by just doing it from the ground. Then, pretty obvious, but please don't forget to train your calves, both with straight leg and bent knee calf raises. Straight leg targets the gastroc muscle and bent knee targets the soleus muscle, which is our strongest muscle pound for pound. So don't forget about that. Do your calf raises and tib raises, and your lower leg will be prepared for jumping and landing. Now, while your muscles are surely a part of your imbalance from side to side, tendons and ligaments are even more important. Even though you can't see it, those connective tissues can grow and get thicker and get stronger. And when it comes to force production and absorption, they play a much bigger role than your muscles. I found for myself that my non-dominant plant was way less strong in connective tissue dominant exercises like the ATG split squat. But that's the exact exercise I'm now using to rebalance my connective tissue strength from side to side. The ATG split squat is perfect because it's a unilateral exercise and is easily scalable to any level. So if you're still very weak or in pain while doing these deep knee bends, you should start with your front foot elevated to take off some pressure. And while the ATG split squat will rebuild your knee, it will also detect imbalances in hip mobility from side to side, as the hip flexor has to lengthen under load to get into that deep position, and you'll often find one side tighter than the other. And that's why, last but not least, we're going to look at your hips, because for your jumping to be balanced, you need your hips to be balanced as well. It is extremely common, and I could almost guarantee that you're tighter on one side than the other. That's why the following exercises are perfect to target each side separately. The incline pigeon pose to open up the outer hip muscles, the couch stretch to open up the front of your hips, your hip flexors and your quads, the hamstring stretch to open up the hamstrings, and the seated good morning to really open up those adductors and to train deep hip flexion. Now, let's look at how to restore kicking balance. For me as a footballer, especially important. So if you're a footballer as well, or a rugby player, or an athlete that just needs to kick a lot, even martial artists, this is going to be valuable for you. Just for you to understand why kicking balance is so important, as a right-footed player myself, for every 10 touches I'm taking, statistically, 8 out of those 10 touches are with my right foot, my dominant foot. Now, over time, this is going to add up massively. Let's say in my career, I kick the ball 10,000 times. 8,000 of these kicks are going to be with my right foot, while only 2,000 are going to be with my left. Just let that sink in. It is important to understand what happens when you kick a ball. Now, your quads are involved big time for sure. Then your hip flexors contract, your tibs contract. That's the kicking leg. Good. And now the standing leg, the planting leg. The planting leg has to decelerate great impacts. So great forces on your knee and ankle. So the stimulus on the two legs is not similar at all, obviously resulting in your kicking leg, in your dominant leg, being much better at kicking, but very weak at planting, and your non-dominant leg, the exact opposite. Now, technically, there is no problem with that because it's just how the game works, right? But here is where I think once again about the saying that your best ability is your availability. So I want to work on that. And to increase my availability, I have to reduce the risk of an injury happening. Again, nothing mind-blowing, but we know that our dominant leg will be better at kicking and our non-dominant leg better at planting. This then leaves our dominant leg at a much higher risk of injury if we then happen to plant it. Just look at this study. Even for me right now, it's just so crazy to think about how simple it actually could have been. Just learning this right now, realizing all of this right now. But yeah, it seems, at least I know it now, and I can teach you all of that. So yeah, I'm happy about that. So how do you regain that deceleration strength when planting your dominant leg? It's definitely not going to be in-game, because in-game you're just going to do what feels natural to you. So it has to be in training. And I personally think, just as in basketball, you want to be able to jump as good of all 4 plans, in football, you want to be able to shoot as strong with either leg, to jump as high with either leg, and to plant as good with either leg. Look, here is something I've observed when watching others kicking with their weak foot. What often makes their weak foot kick seem like a weak foot kick is their inability to properly plant their strong foot. and to rotate their hips to then shoot the ball. So the next time you're doing a shooting drill, you want to focus on kicking equally much with either leg. So you're really getting your strong foot to adapt to that planting motion and your weak foot to adapt to kicking. But doing only shooting drills will probably not give you enough volume to rebalance that muscles, that tendons involved in kicking and planting. That's why you really want to get some unilateral exercises in that allow you to really balance your strength, get stronger, develop the muscles, the connective tissue to really get as balanced as possible. The first exercise again is tib raises to target the muscle that runs down the front of your shin and contracts every time you kick a ball. And of course the ATG split squat again. Thanks to the long range of motion we move through, the ATG split squat creates great hypertrophy on the quads, and in my opinion it's just the best way to rebalance your quad size from side to side. Because when kicking, your quads have to generate all the power. So having equally strong quads on either leg is key for both legs to be balanced. And keep in mind, we're still trying to rebalance, so you can't just think about targeting the quads with a deep squat, for example, because it's not going to do the job as well for us, as when both legs work at the same time, your stronger leg is very likely going to compensate for the weaker. Another great benefit we get from the ATG split squat is the strengthening and lengthening of the hip flexor, which obviously every time we shoot a ball and flex our hip contracts, and when you think about the thousands of reps you have more on your kicking leg, you'll realize that this is a real gem of an exercise for athletes that kick a lot. Let's stay at the hip flexors and target them even more specifically with hip flexor raises. This is probably the best way to rebalance your hips from side to side, but you can start with just leg raises off the ground and progress with something like this. Now, we covered almost, but only almost, everything involved in kicking, but we cannot forget about the hamstrings though, because think of them as the control center for your leg speed during a kick. While your quads and hip flexors supply the force to move your leg forward, your hamstrings are responsible for slowing down the leg's motion, ensuring you have control over your kicks. So without strong hamstrings, your body will simply not allow you to use your full kicking power because the hamstrings wouldn't be able to handle it. It makes sense. So if you're aiming to kick harder and play at your best, it's time to invest in strengthening those hamstrings. That's why the single leg back extension is an incredibly effective way to target those hamstrings separately. Nevertheless, I would still do Nordics, which are in my opinion one of the most game-changing exercises for athleticism. Learn more about Nordics and how they help you reach new levels of athleticism in this video, where I'm sharing the knowledge I wish I had as a 15-year-old athlete. Now, to wrap it up, I want you to imagine how much it will level up your game if no matter which leg you're using to jump off, you're jumping off equally high. And then you're landing, and no matter which leg you're landing with, you're handling that force equally while you're strong with both legs. And then imagine how much more consistent your weak foot pass is going to be if you're able to properly plant your strong foot. And just imagine how much deadlier your weak foot strike is going to be if you're just able to generate that kicking power. And of course, the most important thing of that whole rebalancing process is how much less likely you are now to injure yourself. And talking about injury, make sure to check out my latest video where I'm talking about how to absorb forces properly to reduce injury risk and to increase your athleticism in a healthy way where it isn't destructive for your body. There are 5 major ways to achieve that. I'm talking about those in this video, so make sure to check it out. And yeah, what do I have to say? Your best ability is your availability, so keep that in mind. And yeah, if you have any questions, leave them down below. DM me on Instagram if you want one-on-one coaching, and see you the next time. Peace.